Guardians of the B.L.A.D. by Adalene Martis. Chapter 11. Desperate Nice Guys. That evening, Nyra chose to sleep in her own quarters. Therak lay alone in his dimly lit room, staring up at the metallic ceiling. The hum of the facility's systems did little to distract his preoccupied mind. He replayed their earlier conversation in his mind. Nyra had mentioned that since she was no longer in heat, she didn't see the point of sharing a bed. She had added that, given his size and the small bed, she would sleep better alone. Then she walked away without a glance back, her tail swishing behind her. This left Therak puzzled. She had once expressed a desire to have his cubs, and had purred for him, a sign of deep affection among their kind that could not be easily faked. He had gotten surprisingly happy at the thought of cubs. After 30 years of being alone, he missed family more than anything. To keep his sanity during all those years alone, Therak had created a happy space where he was with an imaginary family. He pictured himself with his childhood friend and fiancée, surrounded by the children he would have had with her if it hadn't been for the war. He would go to this internal world whenever his isolation threatened to overwhelm him. Over the decades, Therak had given up on ever going back to his fiancée, and her face had faded from the dream. The figure of his life mate had become a nameless, faceless one. The figure was a strange blend of his fiancée, his mother, and his sisters, all the feline who had offered him comfort in his life. However, ever since Therak had confessed his affection for her, Nyra had appeared in his dream world, and he was surrounded by their black and tan babies. However, his dream mate had always been affectionate. She didn't need heats to want to groom and be groomed. Then again, that imaginary life mate had been Feran. Therak had heard Panthera felina blew hot and cold, smothering you on their heats and then wanting their space when their heats cooled. He tried to be understanding, but cubs needed consistent affection to grow up well. Would she be a bad mother? Or was it just that she didn't want to cuddle with him? He tried to push these worries aside. Whatever weaknesses she had, he would just have to step up and fill the role. After all, they were partners now. In their unique situation, it seemed almost guaranteed that she would become the mother of his cubs. If not now, then eventually. He resolved to be patient and not to push her into anything she wasn't ready for. With a deep sigh, Therak closed his eyes, willing sleep to come. He drifted into a light slumber, only to be woken up by the soft sound of his door sliding open. He sat up slightly, hope flickering in his chest. "Nyra," he called softly into the darkness. He shifted on the bed to make room for her, anticipating her return. Instead, the room was suddenly bathed in light as Nyra switched on the overhead lamp. Blinking against the brightness, Therak noticed the serious expression on her face. "We need to talk," she said, her tone edged with an accusation he didn't understand. Therak rubbed his eyes, confusion knitting his brow. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked gently. She stood near the doorway, arms crossed. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. He blinked a few times, trying to process her question. Sitting up fully, he ran his fingers through his mane while thinking over her question. Finally, he returned her gaze. "I want us to get along, and I want to know more about you. Right now, all I know is that you're skilled, you're easy to talk to, you're beautiful. You are a dark-furred panthera, and your name is Nyra. That's not enough. I want to know how you grew up, what you believe in, what—" "Why do you care?" she interrupted sharply. "It's not like you have to compete," she said. "I mean, you're the only male here, so you're guaranteed to have me during my heats. I'm already helping you repair the facility because it's in my best interest," she continued. "I don't understand. Why are you being so nice to me? What are you planning?" she asked. Therak gawked at her, utterly baffled. "I don't understand what I've done to make you angry," he said earnestly. She let out a frustrated sigh. "And I don't understand why you're being nice even though I'm not in heat." He gazed at her, sincerity shining in his eyes. "I love you. Did you not believe me when I said it?" Yeah, she scoffed lightly. "I know you want to have sex with me, but I'm not in heat." "What are you planning?" she asked. Therak furrowed his brow. "I'm not planning anything. You're my mate. I want to know who you are. And I want you to be happy." Nyra stared at him, her eyes searching his face as if trying to decipher an incomprehensible enigma. She shifted her weight uncomfortably, a touch of awkwardness in her posture. "Well, if that's all you want, then it's fine," she mumbled. She turned as if to leave, but Therak called out to her. "Nyra." She paused in the doorway without turning around. "What?" she replied. "Thank you for talking to me about how you're feeling," he said gently. "Please do it more often." She turned her head slightly, casting a sidelong glance at him. After a moment, she murmured, "Good night," before reaching for the light switch. The room plunged back into darkness as the door slid closed behind her. Therak lay back down, staring at the spot where she'd stood moments before. He sighed softly. Closing his eyes, he allowed himself to drift into a restless sleep, the hum of the facility lulling him into slumber. Over the following month, Nyra continued to prove herself to be a highly competent engineer, diligently repairing the facility's minor systems. She also continued to sleep alone. However, she did allow Therak to groom her from time to time. Working with her was a joy. She laughed easily and made difficult tasks seem simple. Once when they were eating, and she seemed in a particular good mood. Therak asked her about her past. To Therak's disappointment, she changed the subject back to work. He did not ask again. The following month, Nyra informed Therak that her heat wasn't late. She had missed it entirely. She was pregnant. There was no joy in her voice, no celebration. It was as if she was an AI, and was simply informing him of a change to her internal systems. To make matters worse, that very day they ran out of meat. Therak paced the kitchen trying to figure out what to cook for her, until an idea struck. He stretched the remnant dromedary corpse into a celebratory meal by cracking open the bones and turning the marrow and brain into stew. He took special care in making the stock, drizzling melted fat, browning the bones and then boiling them. While the bones were boiling into stock, he scooped out some of the broth and braised the marrow in it. Then he cut the brain into slices, coating it in salt and powdered bone, and deep-frying it in melted lard until it was crispy. When it was all done, he combined the ingredients together into a hearty stew sneaking in a little paste to make it more filling and for added nutrition. The whole meal took him 6 hours to prepare, but the result was worth the wait. Therak carefully ladled the steaming stew into a large, polished bowl, the rich aroma filling the kitchen. He arranged it meticulously, ensuring that the marrow and crispy brain pieces were perfectly distributed. His tail swayed with anticipation, as he also prepared the now traditional warm rag and bowl of water he always brought Nyra to freshen her up before meals. Carrying the items, he made his way to the table in the mess hall, where Nyra usually took her meals after a long day of repairs. Placing the bowl and the washing basin on the table, he took a step back, a subtle smile tugging at his lips. His ears perked up at the sound of her approaching footsteps. Nyra entered, wiping her hands on a cloth, her fur slightly ruffled and dusty from working on a stubborn air intake valve. She raised an eyebrow upon seeing him. "Dinner ready?" she asked. Yes, Therak replied, a hint of excitement in his voice. He gestured proudly toward the steaming bowl. I made something special for you. She walked over, the fragrant scent capturing her curiosity. Is this what you've been working on all day? What is it? She asked. Marrow and brain stew, he announced with a gleam in his eyes. I used the last of the dromedary bones and brain to create it. She blinked in surprise. Marrow and brain stew? I've never even heard of that before, she said. He nudged the bowl slightly closer to her. Try it, he said, his gaze hopeful. Nyra offered a dubious smile. All right, but I need to clean up first, she said. Before she could reach for the rag, Therak picked it up. Allow me, he said softly. She looked at him quizzically. What are you doing? Cleaning you, he replied simply, taking her hand gently in his. The warmth of the rag contrasted with the coolness of her dusty fingers. She pulled back slightly. Therak, I'm pregnant, not broken. I can wash my hands on my own. He restrained her hand gently, but firmly, continuing his task, carefully wiping away the grime from her fingers. His touch was tender, almost reverent, as he cleaned each digit with meticulous care. As he did so, a low purr began to emanate from his chest, growing steadily louder. At the sound of his purr, Nyra's expression softened, and she stopped resisting him. What's that for? She asked quietly. He smiled gently. I'm happy, he said, his deep voice vibrating with the purr. Noticing a smudge of dust on her cheek, he raised the rag and wiped it away. As he did, an impulse overtook him. Leaning in, he began to lick her face and ear softly, grooming her. His purr intensified, filling the space between them as he became overwhelmed by affection, and kept running his tongue over her fur. She laughed, the sound light. Therak, stop that tickles, she exclaimed, playfully pushing against his broad chest. He leaned back, settling onto his haunches, but unable to suppress the contented purring that rose and fell with each breath. His eyes remained fixed on her. Every part of him wanted to scoot closer, to nuzzle against her, but he restrained himself, giving her space. Nyra shook her head. You're so strange, she said. However, the dull expression that had been in her eyes ever since she realized she was pregnant had gone, and she now had an amused smile playing on her lips. Therak glanced down at the stew and then back up at her expectantly. She chuckled softly. All right, I'll try it. Picking up the bowl, she slurped the hearty stew, tilting it up against her lips. The rich flavors of the marrow melded with the crispy texture of the fried brain, creating what Therak knew was a surprisingly delightful combination. Her eyes widened slightly as she savored the taste. This is really good, she admitted, taking another sip. I didn't expect it to be so flavorful. Therak's ears perked up, his purr rumbling with pride. I'm glad you like it, he said. She studied him for a moment. You're always doing things like this, looking out for me. He nodded. Of course. I care about you. Nyra's eyes misted as she continued eating, clearly enjoying the meal. Thank you, Therak. He watched her with satisfaction. My pleasure. They sat together in comfortable silence as she finished her meal. Finally, she pushed the empty bowl aside and sighed contentedly. That was delicious. There's more in the cooler when you get hungry, he replied, his tail swaying lazily behind him. She stood up, stretching slightly. I'll enjoy it later, then. For now, I think I might take a nap. He rose as well. If you need anything, just let me know. As she began to walk away, she paused and turned back to him. Therak? She asked. Yes. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. Would you like to join me for a while? We could talk, she said. His eyes brightened. I'd like that. A small smile curved on her lips. All right, then. They walked side by side toward her quarters. As they moved through the quiet corridors, Nyra glanced over at him. You know, your purr earlier, it was nice. He chuckled softly. Couldn't help it. She nudged him gently with her shoulder. Just don't go grooming me without warning next time. He grinned. I'll try to restrain myself. They reached her door and she opened it, gesturing for him to enter. The room was modest but comfortable, with several potted herbs she'd managed to sprout over the past months. The old engineer had brought the seeds to help with nausea caused from eating too much paste, but had never planted them. Nyra had somehow managed to get them to grow. For some reason, seeing the little sprouts growing made Therak happy. Maybe she would be a good mother after all. They settled onto the bed, and for a while they talked about the day's work and what she wanted to do tomorrow. Therak was a little disappointed, but he was just glad to be near her. She seemed more open than before. At one point, she looked down at her hands. Therak, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. He turned to face her fully. What is it? She took a deep breath. I know I've been distant at times. Where I'm from, it's not normal for males to hang around and be affectionate after a heat. If they do, it's because they're desperate nice guys who got lucky by being the only male around when you went into heat. They wind up clinging to you thinking that you love them just because you needed sex. So annoying. It's like you give them hints to leave you alone, but they just keep mewling after you until your next heat, trying to be the first in line. You always wind up regretting them, she said. Therak felt a jolt of shock shoot through him, suddenly self-conscious. The rumbling purr that had been lingering in his chest abruptly cut off. Was that how she felt about him? He turned away from her so that she wouldn't see the hurt expression he couldn't suppress. I see, he said. Thank you for understanding, she said. He nodded, feeling supremely foolish for fawning over her, despite knowing she had only been close with him because she needed sex and wanted to negotiate better treatment. Still, he couldn't help loving her. What a miserable feeling. A silence stretched between them. Eventually, Nyra stifled a yawn. I should let you get some rest, he said. She grasped his hand. Maybe you could stay, just for a while. He hesitated, deeply confused. Feelings of hurt and hope clashed madly inside him. If you'd like me to. I would, she affirmed softly. They leaned against each other, and she rested her head on his arm. The steady rhythm of his breathing and the gentle thrum of the facility's systems created a soothing backdrop. She ran a small hand over his forearm and breathed him in for a moment before saying, Therak? Yes, I'm glad you're here, she said. When I think about what living here would be like without you, I find myself terrified, she continued. I have no idea how you survived so long on your own. Well, it wasn't easy. I exercised and I meditated a lot, he replied. Nyra drew her arms around herself. Does that meditation stuff really work? Because I'm struggling, she confessed. I had planned to never have cubs, and now I'm out here in the middle of nowhere, pregnant. It's like the universe is having a great laugh at all my life plans. Everything I try to do ends up failing spectacularly, no matter how talented I am or how hard I try. If I can't manage all that other stuff, how am I going to be able to handle this? She said, motioning to her stomach. Therak laid his hand on her knee. I'll help you. Will you, though? She asked. Because if your idea of help is anything like my father's, then I don't want your help, she said, suddenly angry. Therak looked into her golden eyes, trying to find the secrets they contained. Do I remind you of him or something?" he asked. "Well, you're sticking around and being nice." She said, "It makes me nervous. I don't know what you want." "I want to love you," he said. "Is that so wrong? Nyra, I have no idea who your father is or what he did to you. But I am not him." He stood and started to walk off, but stopped short as Nyra grabbed his hand. "Don't go," she said. Therak furrowed his brow, his confusion deepening. Did she want him to go, or did she want him to stay? He couldn't figure her out. Nyra tugged on his finger until he returned to his seat beside her. Then she leaned into him. He looked down at her, warmth filling his chest despite his confusion. His purr tentatively returned. After listening to his purr for a few minutes, her eyes drifted closed and a peaceful expression settled on her face. Quietly, he remained seated beside her, content until her head began to bob and her body twitched. As she drifted deeper into sleep, Therak gently laid her down and pulled covers over her. He wanted to lay beside her, but a tiny doubt stirred inside him, which caused his purr to fade. Therak stood and strode to the door, turning off the light. Before he left, he looked back with a sad smile on his face. As he left, the door hissed shut between them.